Ladies and gentlefish, we have the British Grand Prix upon us, and this weekend, for some reason, always seems to be the turning point of the season. This weekend always sees whatever establishing the title fight contested, and even if there is no title fight, this one always sees whatever established running order get contested, and honestly, hell yeah, people. The mid-season could always get a bit boring and fade into one since many races do start to play out the same. However, the British Grand Prix gives us a breather that is very much welcomed, and hey, we should not complain. McLaren became champions in 2025 largely because of the upgrade package they brought here in 2023, and when I see reports saying that some teams are bringing upgrades here, like a certain red one, hey man, my excitement is starting to not be contained. So with all of the factors pointing to a crazy weekend to remember, what more can make this better? A sprint weekend. Now, I hate sprints because all they do is spoil the main weekend and towards the end of the season start to decide certain things in the title, which I see as utter woke nonsense. But on one hand, I quite like the sprint since they give less time to teams to get accustomed to the circuit, which obviously leads to more sloppier stuff happening. And even if that doesn't happen, sprint races see drivers giving it more than they would otherwise, which guess there's that. So with teams having less time to prepare and teams also looking very different here, which is probably a government obligation at this point, this weekend will absolutely be one to remember when the season ends, of course. So you know what we must do now. Let us recap the weekend and find some delicious and succulent winners and losers. Subscribe if you like beans the Mexican way, and let's get to quacking now.
See those clouds up in the corner? That's where the rain is coming from.
Heading into Thursday, not much was happening. There, of course, is the whole little issue of George Russell getting benefited from the FI's incompetence, but like, guys, is this really news? We know the FI is incompetent and often gives strange results courtesy of strange decisions, so I just don't see the issue, man. So with that said, can a Mexican vent now? F1 has been boring as hell heading towards Friday, but when this video releases, Mexico will be playing against England in the World Cup, and if Mexico loses that match, it was sincerely nice knowing each and every one of you. Also in other sports, the tectonic plates have shifted. In IndyCar, Scott Dixon, one of the best to have ever done it, has completed his Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari move. Scott Dixon is leaving Chip Ganassi after being with the team longer than I've been alive for, and he is seemingly heading off to McLaren, where surely one of these years he'll finally retire. Guys, I cannot emphasize just how big this is. I mean, imagine if LeBron James left the Lakers right now. It would be so crazy and massive. That's how big this Dixon move is. Hey, wait a minute. Fuck you, me and LeBron left the Lakers. I take two prides in being from California. One is the wonderful weather. Second is LeBron James plays for the Lakers. Sure, he could go to the Warriors or fucking Sacramento Kings, but the Lakers is the big one. And in the case of the Warriors, the non-evil one. If you disagree, argue with the wall, bitch. I do not give a fuck. It's been a crazy week in sports, so sorry if you F1 brain people. I've heard nothing but gibberish for the past minute or so. It's just been hectic. So with that said, I'll talk about the F1 now, starting with Friday with its FP1 and sprint qualifying session. FP1 was usual free practice things, which means we saw nothing. I mean, there were a few funny moments like Lawson and Hulk racing for nothing, so in other words, their season so far, and Oscar Piastri completing his spin from last year at the same place, but nothing otherwise. And because this is a sprint weekend, we could just talk about the running order now, which sees some actual big shit going on. Mercedes have of course ran rings around everyone all season long, but around here they are not looking too hot. I mean, of course they still look good enough for the podium places, but this is without a doubt their slowest weekend yet, since they ain't even the fastest team, I think. That honor instead goes to Ferrari, who, man, oh man, I don't know how to feel. On one hand, yippee, dude, we could have another Lewis win on the cards, and if not, dude, we're still looking super fast and sweet. On the other hand, though, I don't know if you've noticed, but this could be all complete bullshit. Most weekends see Mercedes start their free practices on the back foot before finding something out and setting up a car to be 20 seconds faster than the rest. The sprint format would obviously reduce the amount of time Merc have to do that, so for now in this session they may look mad, but watch, they're gonna have a good chance at being the fastest once more for the race or even qualifying. Just watch. Which, speaking of qualifying, we have the fake one up next that totally won't spoil the main stuff. SQ1 begins and ends just as fast since ain't shit to talk about here, man. It's your usual suspects eliminated, but I guess it was close between Williams and Haas. Woohoo. SQ2 does almost see George Russell out though, but I see his game. Last week, Max almost got out in Q2 before nearly getting pole in Q3 prior to his crash. George is seemingly looking to replicate this, so does he for SQ3? He qualifies in 5th with Kimi 2nd. God damn it, but Kimi wasn't 2nd? What I say about the Merc slow starts, but who got 1st? Sir Lewis Hamilton has qualified on fake pole once more around Silverstone. Off topic, but I love this top 3. The best driver of the past, the best driver of the present, and the best driver of the future. It's a generational top 3, quite literally. So, does the sprint race reflect this, or will it be total chaos? Let us find out. Lap 1 of the sprint begins, and immediately, Kimi and Lewis are on it, trading lap times while everyone else behind is in hell. Max and Charles get terrible starts and get passed by the McLarens, and while they were able to swamp Pastry later, Lando retained 3rd all the way to the end. Back up top though, Lewis gets battery mogged by Kimi, who gets the lead, and while Lewis was able to stay close, Kimi was simply too strong in race pace and easily held it all the way to the end for another sprint race win. Again, going further behind, it's just passes out the wazoo, which for some was great. For some it was horrible, as we were once again having discussions about the regs like it's March again. So with that done and dusted, we now know how toxic the discussions will be on Sunday, so let's hope there's not a major crash between the front runners now. So with that over with, it's time for real qualifying. Who will be the upset this time? Q1 begins, and we almost or potentially do have an answer to my question, since hey George, track is that way. He was able to recover from this blip of his, but come on, George, home audience? You can't be locking up in weird places, dude. After a little spin by Colapinto, Q1 ends with their usual suspects plus Franco out. However, Bottas had to have had the lap of his life to be all that high up. In 19th, of course. Q2 saw literally nothing happen, while Q3 was pretty tight. It was clear the fight for pole was going to be between the Ferraris and Mercedes, and while at first it looked to be a Mercedes front row lockout, Ferrari were able to come back and split the Mercedes, leaving them in a sandwich. Further behind, Max is getting time diff by Hadjar, so get ready for retirement rumors again, people. With the grid now set then, it's time for Sunday, race day. Lap 1 begins, and Kimi Antonelli remembers who he is, which allows for a brief Ferrari 1-2. I say brief though, since about 10 laps later, Kimi is able to come inside Lewis Hamilton and now chases Charlie Kirk in first. However, Ferrari still have a fast car, since Leclerc is not exactly being pressured yet by young Kimi, who himself hasn't fully escaped Lewis Hamilton's grip. But further behind, in that time, Oscar Piastri dropped to the back of the grid for some reason, I hope, while George Russell is being pressured by Max Verstappen. So the race comes down now with cool action here and there, and before we know it, it's time for the pit stops. In terms of the lead, Leclerc pits before Kimi, which means Kimi will lose out when he pits, but will have the much better tires over Charles towards the end of the race. Further behind, Lewis and George are fighting for positions to get 3rd place for Max Verstappen, and it seems that for somebody, the pressure was a little bit too much. That someone being, of course, George Russell. Let me guess, he crashed and was sucky once again. Nope, his tires felt the pressure, since in a secure 2020 reenactment, George has a slow puncture and must pit out of the fight. Later on, there is a VSC out for Hulk, who retired, who could have guessed, and this now allows Max to be on fresh mediums to push all the way to the end. But Kimi Antonelli, as he's chasing Leclerc now on fresh tires, has a car problem that completely drops him out of the running in such a cruel fashion, and miraculously, Ferrari benefits from this. Is this Bizarro 2019 or something? And then a full safety car comes out now for Max Verstappen, who fully rage quit into the barriers, and when the safety car comes in, there is 1 lap to go. But it don't come in, huh? You know, I don't even know why this was, but just know this is connected to Abu Dhabi 2021. Thank you, Michael Massey, for still fucking up things in 2026. So Charles Leclerc wins it from George Russell somehow, and Lewis comes in 3rd. It was a pretty great race if you ask me, so yeah, I'm not complaining. Now for the winners and losers, and as always, losers first, and let's start with Aston Martin. 13 for 13, 14 for 14, I don't know, at this point I've lost count. But man, Few times in my life has a hate watch led to me being sad for my target, but here we are. Aston just continues to stagnate, which on one hand isn't bad since they ain't necessarily getting worse, but when they're qualifying so many seconds behind P20, it's just too bad to say, oh, but it's expected. Now, I know they have upgrades soon, and these upgrades will reshape the car, so we will have to see if those are really effective, and one better hope that they are. However, like I mentioned in a past video, they have lost so much time to the other cars, it will take a miracle to see them back with the midfield guys after just one big upgrade package. Maybe I don't see the new E-Vision, but given everything we have seen from the team this year and last year regarding upgrades, hey man, don't hate me for having doubts. But all in all, you know a weekend was terrible for Aston when their drivers are driving with pure bullshit on their minds. This is not normal and they just don't care anymore. At least the paycheck is sweet. Next is Haas, who I'm for real mad at. Haas, where has your pace gone? You guys were so good at the start of the year and it looked like a delicious midfield battle was upon us. And while we have a midfield battle between Racing Bulls and Alpine, you should have been there too. One could argue Audi should have been there as well, but they are new, so they get the benefit of the doubt. You do not, Haas, and I'm stuck trying to figure out where it went all wrong. They have had a few weekends now where they do not look the best. However, this one was just pitiful, man. They somehow went from scoring P7s at the start of the year to fighting for P17, and this should not be accepted at all. Like, how on earth have they not found something out yet? I'm hoping whatever big upgrades they bring soon launches them forward, since this performance is not acceptable, and for Ollie's sake, please find something out. And I think the worst thing about this is the fact that Spa will likely be worse barring any upgrades to be brought there. Next up is Williams, who looked just so sad, man. You know that look your pet has when it's nearing its end? Williams looked just like that. I get so sad watching them perform how they are this season, since it could have been so much more. Hell, it should have been so much more given all the tough talk they did, but we already know this. This weekend they just look so sluggish. They were there, but also nowhere near there, and when their biggest highlight is barely scraping by Q3, you just can't call that good. Even Albon and Sainz look so sad, and I don't know what to say. Williams have all but abandoned this season, and while a car upgrade here and there will help, I feel like next year is their true starting point. My guess is 2026 has been abandoned, and they're using this year to better understand how to build a better car for 2027 and actually be efficient with it. Hey man, those are the cost of massive reg changes though. Some teams will nail it immediately, others will need time to fully understand and be good in them. You win some or you lose some, basically. Next up, I have Mercedes. What the hell has happened? Imagine going back to 2019 and telling an F1 fan the Mercedes are having issue after issue every single race, while Ferrari are the ones with the least amount of faults this season. I mean, seriously, how does this happen to Mercedes? I'm going to exclude the drivers from being losers themselves for obvious reasons. George could argue could be a mid-driver of the week, but he certainly ain't no loser. And poor Kimi, man. Such a great weekend ruined by an issue that he couldn't control. It's just painful. It would have been better had his engine exploded instead of the 1 in 1,000 chance of his wing stabbing the car. All we can do is admire his resilience he had after the incident to try and score whatever points he could, which he absolutely could have had the safety car not come out. But Mercedes, you guys were the efficient ones. How has this happened? How has this happened? Finally is McLaren. I want to say this is now the second weekend in a row now where McLaren have been losers, and hey man, can you blame me? This performance from them is so shocking, especially considering how last season they were damn near untouchable. It is kind of sad now watching them, since they absolutely should be more of a threat with the top guys, but no. Instead, they are getting threatened by Racing Bulls at times, and it just leaves me confused, because you would think that with all the facilities and staff they have, they would have a much better understanding of these cars than they actually do. But yeah, I don't know what you want me to say. This is just the same story again and again. Lando Norris does supremely well in his driving and overtaking, only to see that's for like P5 because the car is just unable to be good and menacing. I would include Piastri here on most weekends as well, but I say most because this week he was kind of cheeks, man, not gonna lie. He did not look good in that car at all this week, and it sucks, but we move, I guess. Now for the mid guys of the week, and let's begin with Alpine. Firstly, Franco had a good weekend, so he will be excluded from here. All weekend long, their car looked so twitchy and not at ease, which led to not only a disappointing weekend with, let's be real, lucky points, but Racing Bulls also taking a nice chunk out of them. I don't think this signals the end for Alpine though. I'm sure Spa and Hungary will be significantly better weekends, and by the time everyone is back from the summer break, Alpine will have new challengers with new toys ready to fight them and their new toys as well. But that's all kind of cope. Alpine this week were mid, that it kind of made the weekend worse from a certain perspective. I think an Alpine and Racing Bulls midfield fight around here would have been cinema, but oh well, you just can't have everything go good now, can you? And finally, I have Audi. Audi are just so confusing this year. It's so strange too, because like they have realistically not gotten worse or better. Every week I conveniently see someone ahead of them do bad, which puts Audi ahead. However, they remain there but not there still. They were able to fight for some points this weekend, but only with one car. That's a trend too, since point to me the last good Audi weekend where both cars did great in the same race. One car usually has little to no issue, so they could be cucked by the midfield, while the other gets an atrocious strategy or engine that ruins their race regardless. This weekend was that yet again, and I don't know, man, do something. It's actually so weird this season. The midfield teams have been a lot more inconsistent. I don't know if I like that. I guess it's not totally bad since the front is so tight and good, but I like me some midfield battles. But if all of them except Racing Bulls are unable to be consistently good, it just makes me a little bit sad. But hey, it could be worse. Audi could have had a double DNF or gotten into crashes that see them banned for Spa, so I guess you can't be too sad about the weekend. Now for the winners, and I have Ferrari. Looking at history, Ferrari should have had a poor weekend here since in many prior years, Ferrari have been lacking in pace around Silverstone. However, new regs knew me apparently, since Ferrari performed so much better than I thought, and you probably thought too. Of course, there is the Lewis buff, since around Silverstone, Lewis finds like 5/10 out of his ass to ensure he always does well, but my main highlight of the weekend is of course Charles Leclerc with his brilliant victory. This is the first weekend in a while now where Charles was able to be close and just fully ahead of Lewis, and I know it's the bare minimum, but you have to celebrate this stuff. Anything to give Charles the confidence he so desperately needs, since the more drivers competing for the podium, the better obviously. It's only up to Charles to see if he can keep this form permanent, and for his sake, I sure hope he does. But Silverstone was a great weekend for the Ferrari boys, and I think once the big ADU upgrades come very soon, we can imagine even bigger and better things with this godforsaken team. Next is Isaac Hadjar, who thoroughly impressed me this week. Red Bull this weekend were not good whatsoever. Again, their car is just so boaty and heavy, and it's really apparent at circuits like Silverstone. It's a shame too, because with their engine, they very easily could have been the dominant team this year, but oh well. Where Max had his struggles this weekend, which means he's even more of a bitch in the media than usual, Isaac Hadjar saw what he was given, put his head down, and made the most of it. Hadjar was by far the best Red Bull driver this weekend, and it makes me happy. I was seriously so worried about him when I saw the announcement of him moving to Red Bull, since I think you know why. However, he seems to be doing pretty good so far, and every weekend is seeing minor improvements compared to other second Red Bull drivers who got worse with every single weekend. Miami very well could have been the turning point for Hadjar's demise, but he instead got better, and for now has done absolutely nothing to warrant his sacking. Good shit, Mr. Hadjar. Next up is Valtteri Bottas, who I'm going to keep it short. He is here not because he scored points or something, nowhere near it, but he is here instead because in that dogshit Cadillac, he finally was not dogshit. All year long, Bottas has been getting killed by Checo, but in this one weekend, he finally stood up for himself and was not trash for once. That's about it though, since of course no points came from this, but hey, you gotta take the small wins, even if they are really small. Next up is Franco Colapinto. Franco initially started the weekend poorly since the sprints were all too exciting and the main qualifying was supremely underwhelming. But this is a new Colapinto, guys. He kept his head down, locked in, and got points in the race from 19th in such a brilliant comeback. Franco for a while now has at least matched Gasly in terms of performance, and I think this is great obviously. Last year was really make or break in his career, and it seems keeping him on was the wise choice. Now, I don't think this form will last forever, but let's hope it does, since come on man, why hate this? Finally, I have Racing Bulls. Seriously, I am like super impressed with these lot this season. I've said this many times, but I for real thought they would be super ass this year. However, no, these guys are fast, like really fast. The last time this team was this good was probably back in 2021, and while neither driver has replicated Gasly's form from that year, both drivers have instead been really good compared to the 2021 lineup. Of course, this weekend they had things semi-easy since Alpine were pretty bland, but that don't mean the results were easy. They still had to fight for them, and they won thanks to their two great drivers this season. Liam has been so good this year, along with rookie Lindblad, and it's clear both deserve a future in the sport, especially Liam, who should absolutely be on the grid in 2027. But yeah, Racing Bulls had another good weekend this week, and their midfield title ambitions continue to look good. Finally, let's check out how my predictions and bingo ended up. My sprint predictions were half right or wrong depending on how you see it. My qualifying predictions were not too bad, just a little bit out of order. My race predictions were actually not that bad, surprisingly, which certainly shocked me. My random prediction was wrong outright, which does suck, obviously. Your predictions were pretty wrong as per usual, however, some of you did predict a Ferrari win. And finally, my bingo card has a cool little update this week. So those were my winners and losers from the weekend. Now we have a short little break before coming back for the Belgian Grand Prix. By the way, over at Crash Happy, we'll be all dressed as bananas for Belgium because why the hell not, man? Don't miss it. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to all my Result Flock for the continued support, and make sure to join if you want cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you have a like and subscribe since it really helps me out. Make sure to let me know in the comments who your winners and losers are, and as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.